Welcome back to Life from Scratch. I'm Alyssa, and if you're new here, welcome to the community. I am a brand new YouTuber, and I like to make videos on trying to figure out different ways that allow me to live a more self-reliant and self-sufficient lifestyle. So today I have a video all about vermicomposting and what that looks like, and I've never done this before, so I'm really excited to bring this to you. So I had a long day of teaching, and I got home from school, and Colby tells me that my worms came in the mail, and as funny as that sounds, I was ecstatic. I was over the moon, so excited that my worms came in the mail. So here I am, ready to get this guy started, and I guess we'll just hop right into it. So vermicomposting essentially is a form of composting that uses worms to break down kitchen scraps, and the castings that they leave behind is something that contains a lot of nutrients, and it's a really great ingredient for good soil. So I've never done this before, and I'm really excited to give it a try. One of the reasons why I wanted to try vermicomposting is because where I live in New York, it's really, really cold, and there's a lot of snow right now. My compost bin that is outside is not very close to my house, and so to be quite honest, I'm just a little bit lazy, and I don't want to trudge through the snow across the yard to throw out my kitchen scraps. So I was looking for a way that I could compost indoors. So if you're somebody who lives in an apartment, or if you have a very, very small yard and not a lot of space for a large compost bin, then this might be a good option for you. This is something that you can do just in totes, right in your kitchen. You could do it in your garage. You could do it, I'm in my basement. I'm gonna leave mine down here. And so long as you have a darker area, it should be good to go, because the worms don't like a ton of sunlight. So let's see what we've got. So the first thing I did was gather all of my materials. Obviously, as I told you, I was very excited that my worms came in the mail today. I ordered from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, and believe it or not, you can order worms online. So I will link the website that I got this from below. I actually saw a blog post from, I can't remember who it was, but somebody else had said they ordered from here. I did a research on the website itself and the company itself, and they've been in business for more than 40 years, and it seemed pretty reliable. So I'm very interested to try this out and see how the worms work. I have 2 totes, and like I said before, worms don't really like sunlight, so I made sure that they were colored. Any color should be fine. If you have black, or if you have like a charcoal color, that should be fine. Just anything other than clear, because you don't want a lot of light getting to the worms. So I have, I guess you could call this turquoise here. I have a drill and a drill bit. So this is going to be what I use to put holes in my totes so that the worms have some air circulation, and that, you know, we can get some airflow around the food scraps as well. I've been told that it's not something that smells, so you shouldn't worry too much about having a foul smell from your kitchen scraps coming from the totes. I have 2 totes actually. Oh, and the drill bit is a quarter. This one is a 1/4 inch, but you could use an 1/8 inch drill bit or a 1/4 inch drill bit. Something large enough to let air flow through, but not large enough that the worms could really kind of get out if they wanted to. I have some rocks, just little ones that I have left over from a craft project I did a few years ago, that are going to go in the bottom tote to kind of lift that second one up a little bit, just in case there needs to be some drainage. And then lastly, I have my brown composting materials. So the brown composting materials are going to be things that are organic compounds, but they're considered, you know, they've got a high content of carbon, and they are essentially like the dead leaves, or I have some dead branches here. Colby had some sawdust in the workshop that he's going to be letting me use, and so for this particular project, I'm going to be using some dead plants and some sawdust. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill holes in the side and the top of my totes, and I'm going to let you watch that, but I'll speed it up just in case it takes me a little bit too long. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, about 28 holes in the lid. And I did 4 on each side of the tote, just up at the top so some airflow could come out of the sides. And the one thing that I've already learned that you might want to try if you do this at home is have something that you're going to drill into underneath your lid. Or don't do it like I did on the top here, because if you go a little bit too hard, you might crack your lid. And I did in a couple of places, but I'm not super concerned because I do have a second one that I can go ahead and use later, just because I bought 2 totes and we're only going to use one of the lids. So just something to keep in mind. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the rocks that I have and I'm going to put them on the bottom of the outer tote that I'm going to use. And then we're going to add our other tote on the inside. So let's go ahead and do that. If you guys are curious about where I am, I'm in my basement right now, and what I'm sitting in front of is where I'm going to be doing my seed starting. So if you want to see how I set that up and the grow lights, I will put a little card about that video. It was quite the process, and I'll link it in the description box below. But I'm going to go ahead and add these little rocks to our outer tote here. So I just added them in. I'm going to spread them out a little bit. Okay, so I just spread them out a little bit, and remember, these are going to serve as that separation between the 2 totes, so that if anything needs to drain out of the inner tote, it can land in the outer tote here, and it'll also help with some airflow as well. So I'm going to add our totes back together, and now it is time to start filling these guys. So I'm just going to vacuum this out really quick. Didn't want any plastic pieces left behind from drilling our holes, but I'm going to start filling this up now. So I'm going to take the plants that I brought in from outside. I'm just going to break them in half so they fit in here. Spread them out a little bit. Then I'm going to add some sawdust. Maybe don't do it like that. But I have my brown material in here now, and all I have left to do is to add my worms. Before I do that, I'm going to add just a little bit of water to my compost bin to kind of settle some of the dust that's been in here. When you're talking about composting, one of the main ingredients, you could say, is keeping your compost bin moist. So occasionally you may have to add some water to your compost bin just to make sure that the compost is nice and moist so that it can decompose properly. But to start it off, we have to add just a little bit. A spray bottle would work just fine. I don't happen to have one at the moment that is empty, so I'm just pouring some water on top of it. But now we are officially ready to add our worms. So they came in this little bag from Uncle Jim's worm farm, and they also they're packaged with peat moss. So one thing I recently learned is that peat moss is a good base layer for vermicomposting, because it does hold water and it keeps the compost moist, whereas a lot of times it's traditional to use something like newspaper, which is fine. I'm actually going to add some to mine as well. However, it doesn't hold water very well, so it might just spill around or dry out too quickly. And the peat moss is something that is nice to kind of hold on to that water and keep it moist. So I guess we'll just pour these bad boys in here. Make sure I didn't lose any of the little guys. But I will say I am strangely very excited for this. I told Colby, I was jumping up and down like a little child. I was very excited. I said, this must be the weirdest thing ever for somebody to be excited about worms. He says no, but I mean, you can tell me in the comments below if that's weird or not, but hey, everybody needs a little something to put a smile on their face every once in a while, right? I do have to say though that he told me a very sweet little story. Colby's actually the one who caught the guy, the FedEx guy who was dropping these off. And apparently he said he took them home with him last night to make sure that they didn't perish and freeze in the truck overnight, which I thought was the sweetest thing ever. And then he thanked Colby for ordering these because it allowed him to have a paycheck. How sweet is that? Isn't that not the sweetest thing ever? But okay. All right, I think we got them all. I think we're good to go. I am just looking at it right now, and what I have read from the directions from Uncle Jim's worm farm is that it takes about 24 to 48 hours for them to start settling into their environment. So I probably won't add any kitchen scraps to this until, after a day or two, just to make sure that the worms are settling in okay. But a quick tip about how to add your kitchen scraps to your compost bin. One of the benefits of vermicomposting is that it happens much quicker than traditional composting because you rely on the worms instead of the microbes to do the decomposition. So it's much quicker than traditional composting. However, you do still want to make sure that you're keeping track of where you are putting your kitchen scraps. So a suggestion that I read was that you take your kitchen scraps and you rotate where you put them. So for example, I will be putting my first batch of kitchen scraps up in the, let's say the top right corner here, and then I will rotate clockwise. So that the next week about, I will go to the bottom right, then the center, then the bottom left, then the top left, and then the center. So by the time I get back up to this top right corner, that first batch of kitchen scraps should be gone. I'm really looking forward to adding those in there. My first batch is actually going to be what's left over from some apple juice I made from remaining apple peels and apple cores. I just made some applesauce, so if you're interested in that recipe, I'll leave that down below. But I used the cores to make some juice and the peels to make some juice, and so what was left from the juicer is going to go in here, and then some other things I've been using from cooking this week. So I just wanted to give you guys a little view of what this looks like. Obviously you can see the sawdust got everywhere, but I just added some moist newspaper to the top of it. A little tip that I have is if you're finding that your worms are not burrowing themselves in, you could add a light like this to kind of force them to go down. Like I said earlier, they don't really enjoy the light. So right now these little guys are still waking up from their travels, but eventually these guys are going to be up and at them. They're going to start burrowing themselves in here, and then in just a day or two I'm going to add some kitchen scraps and watch them go. So alright guys, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight and trying out this new method of composting. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give that video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you know when I post more content. If you're looking for more information from Life from Scratch, Check out the blog, the Facebook, and the Instagram. But other than that, happy composting.